Good evening, and thank you so much for being part of Joy Asonye Live this beautiful evening. At last, the D-Day is here. Senator Godswill Akpabio has emerged the 10th president of the Senate after defeating Senator Abdulaziz Yari. And in the same vein, Tajuddin Abbas, the endorsed candidate of the All Progressives, has emerged Speaker of the House of Representatives. This is amidst all we had heard speculations that a dark horse might emerge. We also heard several things ahead of the elections that we might not see Akpabio and the Tajuddin ticket sail forth. However, we have Senate today and the inauguration has indeed held. To discuss all of this, how this election, the leadership of the National Assembly elections went, what went on before today, and the future of our elections, we have in the studio Bosun Adeyeye. He's a risk expert and a social commentator. Thank you so much for being part of the program.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So we'll go for a very short break and return to go into the conversation at hand. Stay with us. Welcome back from that short break. Like I said earlier, we have Mr. Adeyeye here with us, and he doesn't seem very surprised that Senator Godswill Akpabio finally emerged and Tajuddin Abbas. But we had heard that we were going to see a strong fight. Yari refused, that's the former Zamfara state governor, refused to let go. It was a case of, is the APC divided within itself? But you tell me, why were you so strong on the fact that these two would indeed emerge?
Yeah, let me start by saying Yari's continuous maintenance of his stand as far as chasing the position of Senate presidency was justified eventually this morning. Because if you look at all that went into this, and at the end of the day, the guy was still able to poll 46 votes.
So he's indeed a strong contender.
He was a strong contender. So, and if you are privy to so many things that happened behind the scene, particularly in the last 72 hours, why the guy still maintained that he would not step down. Aside. And at the end of the day today, I watched the program live, and I saw that even at the time when it was midway into the election, there was still tension in the chamber. If the camera focused Godswill Akpabio at some point, whether I was praying, whether I was doing enchantments, I didn't know, but you could see tension right on his face. So that's to tell you that no one actually knew where the pendulum would swing. But one thing was sure, for some of us who had been following consistently, I knew it was going to be a tough fight. But I was very sure that it might be just 1-2 difference in margin. But the party supremacy will eventually had the day. So, and that is exactly what happened. And when I'm talking about not being surprised, it's actually informed by a number of factors. One, the candidate or candidates pushed forward by the party. You know, it's something about, there's something about the party saying this is where we are going. And the candidates they are pushing forward are the candidates that everybody know that they are not the right candidates. No matter how the party push, eventually they may not see the light of the day because people will have reasons to go against the party's choices. But in this case, let's start from House of Rep.
Okay.
Tajuddin Abbas is not even arguably. Everybody believed that he was the most productive House of Rep member of the 9th Assembly.
Right.
Bringing about 74 bills and many of which were assented to by Mr. President, the former president. And when you look at Kalu, Benjamin is our current deputy speaker now. Is one guy that anybody that followed his time as a chairman as committee on publicity.
He was the spokesperson of the house.
He was the spokesperson of the house. You will know that he gave his all. He has the charisma, even to be the speaker of the. In fact, I've said it in some fora that one of the characteristics or qualities of somebody supposed to be that deputy senate president or deputy speaker should be that in case anything happens to the speaker or the senate president, whatever, they should be able to step into that shoe without any problem. So, same way for deputy governors. In this part of the world, we normally see deputy governors as spare tires. They shouldn't be.
Very often, we don't even get to hear from them.
To them, some of them, we don't even know their names. So, but it shouldn't be. And when you look at the person and personality of Godswill Akpabio, it's a strong personality. You can say anything about him, but the fact remains that he has a credential of performance.
Credential of performance?
Yes. That's why he earned that nickname, Uncommon Governor. Because wherever or whatever Udom had done today is building on that template set by Godswill Akpabio. Among the governors of his own time, he was like Wike of the last administration. In terms of delivering on projects that touch the lives of the people of Akwa Ibom. So, in terms of track records, he was a lawyer for about 36 years, according to him. He was a commissioner, I think, about 2 terms before he became a governor. So, in all of these positions he had held them meritoriously. So, he has had a stint. He had been at the first time he's coming to the Senate, he was made the minority leader. So that's to tell you the person we are discussing here. It's not just a novice, it's not just somebody that they want to foist on the Senate. He has the capacity.
We will actually get to this anointment.
So to answer your question straight away, I'm not surprised. I know surprised. That's exactly what we are.
However, there were, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we saw that the EFCC had invited Akpabio, and it brought again to fore the kind of allegations, corruption allegations that were surrounded by him. We thought that the Senate would also look at that. And what does it tell you about our politicians? I mean,
no. You know, some of these narratives are just on social media here and there.
And that this EFCC did not?
No, I didn't say that.
Right.
The issue is this. EFCC will do their work. The fact that somebody wants to be a governor or he wants to be
This invitation was not a vetting invitation. It was a corruption allegation invitation. I'm
coming now. I want to answer your question.
Okay.
The fact is that this man was in charge of Niger Delta Ministry for about 4 years.
Exactly.
And under his ministry is where we had NDDC. So there are certain allegations of corruption under that agency.
I remember the off your mic saga.
So even if you still remember that saga, what Akpabio wanted to do was to open the can of worms. He wanted to lay everything bare. He was already accusing some of those guys that is it because you want to take all these contracts and we said no, that's why you are bringing all this up. So it was like and that's what worked against him, primarily in this pursuit of Senate presidency. Right. One of the major sins of Akpabio is that they felt he denigrated the parliament.
Right.
That he did not respect them, and therefore
when he was minister.
Yes, when he was minister, and therefore he shouldn't be given the opportunity to lead, because a Senate president is not just president of the Senate, is the chairman of the National Assembly. So whether you offend them in the House of Rep or in the Senate, you have actually offended the parliament. So that's one of the things that counted against him. And like the line of my thought before you interrupted me, the fact remains this: there were allegations on certain projects under NDDC. But the question or the fact on the table is that all through his time as Niger Delta minister, there was no any project, to the best of my knowledge, that he approved and the money was released for it. Yes, you can go and find out. You are a journalist.
Of course.
So there was no somebody. If I don't have power to approve or I didn't release money, there is no money released to me. So what have I corruptly enriched myself with? So there was nothing like that. The allegations were allegations on the projects that were actually within the purview of the people who occupied those positions before he became minister. So it was not, position of a minister is an institutional position.
It is.
So whatever happened between the time, whether before you came or when you were there, if there is any question to that office, you have to answer. That was exactly what happened. So as far as I'm concerned today, there was no reason for Asiwaju as the president or the outgone Senate to call him to come and explain anything. There was no reason for that. So it's normal that they invited him and he went there to answer some of those things that he knew about the allegations they brought forward. So I think that is exactly what happened.
Okay, now let's go to that endorsement or anointing, as a lot of people have called it. Well, it seems like the president did not give others the benefit of doubt or play that fatherly role of allowing everyone to go to the polls, but he picked, it seems like he picked a certain candidate, Senator Godswill Akpabio. And this is something in our democracy that some people have found disturbing. Is it a phenomenon you share?
Okay, I will answer this question making reference to certain factors that actually made what has happened not anything special or anything strange. The first factor would be the fact that this presidential system we practice today is copied from the US.
Right.
And the vice president of the US at any time, even now, is the vice president. The Senate president of US is the vice president to the president of US.
Right.
So that's even saying that in their own case, they've institutionalized the position of the party. The role party will play in the parliament has been institutionalized. So it's not something you are thinking that, okay, party should soon. So at any time, whoever becomes the vice president of US, United States of America, becomes automatically the leader of the Senate. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
So in this case, and I've said this times without number, the president we have today, in person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, me and you have discussed a lot about this man
very extensively,
at different times.
Yes.
It's not a president like those we have had before now, particularly like the immediate past one. Some weeks back, while we were preparing for transition, Fashola, the immediate past Minister of Works, was brought on a program, and I listened to his interview. And he did analysis of Coach Mourinho as a coach, as a football coach.
Right. And
another coach, like, not really, but I think it looks like that kind of coach. That's Arsene Wenger, the former Arsenal coach. Because most times he will sit down, believe that he has done his best, he has coached his boys, and he will just sit down there and watch his guys play. But Mourinho will stand, he has coached you, right?
Yes.
He has done the training for you, but he will still stand 90 minutes by the sideline. At different times, Mourinho had been given yellow card for possibly crossing his band, because he will always feel like he should be on the pitch to play with you. That's the kind of coach Asiwaju is.
Is that particularly
no. I'm trying to lay, I will explain myself.
Right.
Asiwaju believes that whatever that is worth doing at all is worth doing well. And you can't get results when you are not conscious of the people you give assignment in the first place. And this government that is superintending over today, the way it is designed, it's not something you can do alone. Even if you feel like you should do it alone, you cannot do it alone by the virtue of our constitution.
Naturally.
We have the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary.
Exactly.
The only one that he has little influence on is the legislature. In the area of, okay, maybe little on judiciary, but the little is just that he will have the opportunity to choose among the first three that National Judicial Council recommend to him. But he cannot just sit down and decide who will be his Chief Justice of Nigeria. There are rules on ground.
That guides that.
Yes, it's a career path. So you don't just say because of your whims and caprice, you just decide that somebody from a Court of Appeal can be brought to be Chief Justice of Nigeria. It doesn't work that way. So, but in this parliament, where certain roles are expected to be played by the party, and don't forget, the president of Nigeria is always the party leader, according to the way we frame our constitution.
Exactly. Particularly
the most party constitutions in Nigeria. Asiwaju is the leader of his party today. So it's not just only the president, he is also the one leading that party. So when they say party has said, so it's more or less like saying the president has said. So he knows that people that will work with him, either as Speaker or Senate President, are people that must share in his vision. He has told Nigerians that I have a renewed hope pact with you. Our 80 pages campaign promises. If he must deliver on those promises or those campaign pact he has with Nigerians, he needs to work with people he can fight for. When we say fight for here, not people that will say yes, daddy. Not
because
people
that
will say no. Not the people that will say yes, yes. If you listen to Akpabio after he was sworn in today, he said we will scrutinize, we will give robust debate to everything that comes from, but at the same time, we will ensure that we work to complement what the executive is doing. The problem here is that many Nigerians believe that when we say parliament should be independent, they think it should be kind of parliament that was superintended over by Bukola Saraki, where at every point in time, the executive and the legislative
seem to be
legislature are always at the loggerheads. No,
was that particularly a bad thing?
It was a bad thing, and I will tell you.
Nigerians are still wriggling from the fact that we had taken so many loans. There were policies that this government assented to, or the 9th Assembly assented to, that Nigerians would say, "How did this pass?"
Okay, I agree with you, without necessarily considering. But I'm saying this.
I want to know the difference,
that's just one part you just mentioned. Have you also looked at the fact that I come from Kwara, where Saraki came from that time? Kaba, Ilorin Road, was personally put in the budget by Saraki at different times, but was never funded. Why do you think it was like that? Because the executive was not in good terms with Bukola Saraki. Somebody can say, oh, it shouldn't be. That why should, because we have different opinions about the way things should be, why should certain people pay for it? If you listen to Ali Ndume said he actually was a protagonist of that move that produced Saraki, but he had learned over time that at the end of the day, all of them that worked that part, they paid for it. The government of Nigeria paid for it. Because as the government was fighting Saraki from one hand, Saraki was fighting back from another hand. And who were the grasses that born the brunt? Nigerians. Many good policies that would have saved us, that would have saved the day for Nigeria, where they will actually pass through the parliament, be ready for assent. But Buhari was not ready to assent anything as far as it was coming from that hand. So it was a battle to finish. And at the end of the day, what did Nigeria gain from that Ulabalu that we saw. Most of the times,
Nigerians would like to believe that it was better scrutinized, that the bills were better scrutinized, that it was a robust,
okay, let me ask you this question. Since
engagement.
Now,
no, I'm just talking
you're asking the question, but
exactly.
maybe I have also the opportunity to ask you this question. Between Saraki's 8th assembly and 9th assembly of your so-called what's that popular phrase now?
Rubber stamp.
Rubber stamp.
Your word.
No, not my word. It's you people's word. No, not you. the most gullible public word. I will say that without any apology. Because how can you be comparing 8th assembly seen by Saraki with 9th assembly that was under the chairmanship of Lawan, where we had the legendary PIA passed, which gave way today to the subsidy removal that we are talking about today.
That's interesting. You
where we have the electoral act that so many
successive government. Is there a reason why it wasn't signed? If the executive had signed,
when was it passed by Saraki? What was the reason given by Buhari that he would not be able to sign it? He said the time they brought this thing to him
was too short. It
will not just only too short, that it will lead to a lot of litigations, because there are times that the constitution permits that certain bills have to be translated to the president for assent. So if you don't do the work within that time, and this thing was not as if Saraki wanted to do that, but it was because of the back and forth between the presidency and the Senate, and this was on the platform of disharmony between the presidency and the Senate that time. If it were to be a presidency that was in sync with the assembly, most of those back and forth that we saw that time that led to Buhari not being able to sign that electoral act in 2018, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm saying this, let me bring my point home, that Nigerians have a lot to gain from harmonious relationship between the parliament and the executive, other than the ignorant thinking of many that when there is an agree kind of national assembly, that is when Nigeria will gain more. That is when party is not happening. No, you can do your work as National Assembly, scrutinize every bill, every request coming from the presidency and the executive, robust debate over those issues without necessarily grounding the executive or their policies and programs, all in the name of saying, oh, I don't believe or I don't agree with your way of saying things. Because most of these things should be in the interest of Nigerian public.
If you have to appraise the 9th Assembly,
yes,
it's a fantastic time to do that. What would be your thoughts on how they conducted?
Me, I would say that in every aspect or any yardstick you want to use to measure them, it will still come to the conclusion that
best ever.
I might not be able to say best ever. I can only talk based on those ones that I know. I became conscious of National Assembly, I think, maybe from, better part of my growing up were under military. So I will only be able to talk about from the time, under military, National Assembly is always the first casualty.
Exactly. So,
but from 1990 now, I want to say that it remains the most productive assembly.
The 9th Assembly remains the most productive. In your
if you have counter evidence, you can bring it to the
I just want your appraisal.
It's the most productive assembly. The only area where I have problem with 9th Assembly is the area of loans that they kept approving for the former president, especially when these loans were not tied to productive projects that can pay for itself. How should loans be approved for paying salary or used for what they call that one, SIP, 5,000 naira that cannot be accounted for?
Right.
So that's the only area.
The most productive.
Yes,
That's
is that the only thing they have done?
That's a huge area.
Is that the only they have,
I mean, there are several. There are several.
There are a better part of these loans that we actually use for something we can see today. Today we are talking about Second Niger Bridge.
Okay.
Today we are talking about Abuja, Kaduna, Kano Road. Today we are talking about Lagos Ibadan Road. Better part of these loans were used for these projects. But I'm saying I condemn in totality whatever part of that loan that was now used for handouts. I don't support that one. But that does not mean
you can
all the loans
of course,
that were collected were actually used for things like that. No, we have to be sincere when we are analyzing government policies and programs.
Okay.
Where Buhari has not done well, we will point it out. But where he has done well, we have to give the credit to him.
Okay. It's time to go for a short break right now. We are still discussing the 10th Assembly leadership elections. And when we return, we'll be discussing how my guest projects the checks, that healthy checks and balances we should see from with the executive and the legislative arm of government. Would it be productive as well? We'll be right back after this. Stay with us. This is still Joy Asonye Live. Thanks for staying with us. We've been discussing the 10th Assembly leadership elections, and my guest has spoken extensively as to how much he has hope for these elections. But let's go into that. The APC, that's the All Progressive Congress, had before these elections zoned the leadership, and that some people kicked against. Well, Nigerians are asking, is this going to be a rubber stamp legislature where everything the president says is going to be assented to? We'll go back to that conversation. Bosun Adeyeye is my guest. He's a risk expert and a political analyst. I would like to ask you, that healthy checks and balances necessary to keep that relationship going, while it is, like you have said earlier, very commendable that we see a good synergy, do you think it might go overboard? Looking now at the individuals that are manning the positions, those principal positions in the 10th Assembly.
Well, let me start by saying our democracy is growing. Our governance structure is evolving. And the people that are coming on board, like I've said earlier, there are people who have the requisite experience. They have the wherewithal. They have the capacity. They have I would say the integrity too. Because if you look at a personality like Abbas, he was not seen as one of those people that will ever be speaker in the house. He was never ambitious. He was just doing his work. But if you look at where he's coming from, this same man who had been, I think, in the back or so, then he was a lecturer, then at different times he had worked in different capacities before his foray into politics. And since he had been in the house, he had made strong contributions that many of his colleagues, even people that are just coming, people like Ugo Chinyere, he's a first-timer. But the way he's singing about his achievement, one thing that is selling about him is the achievement of this man, this gentleman, this man that does not talk, but is a silent achiever. So, and when you see people who are not flippant, people who are reserved, don't take them for granted. That's the kind of person I see in Abbas.
Right.
They know where they are going. They know what they want to achieve for themselves. And when they are given positions of authority, many of them always guard it jealously. Because there is something about posterity. So it's something that he had done that qualified him for this position today. So what will happen to him? Not even in the next 4 years. You know, assembly is a volatile environment. where within 1 month you can be impeached. I don't know whether you know.
Of course.
So one of the things that will begin to test your capacity is the fact that you are able to hold your colleagues together, because you are first among the equals. So you are not bigger than any other person in the house. But today they have given you the position that, okay, lead us. They saw certain things why they they decided that you should be a leader. And whatever they have seen must be the reason why you should keep to those qualities. And I'm saying it, let me say this explicitly, that both Abbas and Akpabio, I don't see a yes daddy among between the two of them. I see people that are ready to collaborate and work with the executive, but at the same time, who will be able to look back at what they have done and say, oh, in all good conscience, we have done what we are expected to do. And I want to say this again. There is need for us to correct this notion that is very rife among Nigerians, that the only good assembly, whether it is state or national, is the one that is always having disagreements with the executive. It's a wrong notion.
No,
the essence, wait. I'm a student of politics. I did politics at advanced levels. And one of the reasons why we have the three arms of government is the fact that there should be checks and balances. There is none of them that can operate without the other. The president will call for proclamation of the house when they are to start. When they are to nominate people for judiciary, whether as justice or whatever, it has to pass through him, though recommendation will be made by the National Judicial Council.
Exactly. When
the executive needs to pass certain laws, because they cannot do it on their own, they have to pass it through the assembly. But before the law can also become law, the assent has to be given by the executive. So these are the things that have been designed to ensure that there is no overbearing of any of the arms, so that there is working together among the three arms. But when people make it look like, oh, you should be doing your own, I should be doing my own, government will not fare well. The essence of those three arms is for them to work together, complement each other, one another. And if there are reasons to disagree, disagree to agree, not just disagree for the sake of disagreeing. So I want to say that I don't see a rubber stamp legislature working with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And if you know him very well, I have told people today in different true fora that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you can say anything about him, but one thing you cannot take away from that man is that he doesn't work with dummies. He doesn't. His speaker, when he was governor, was the immediate past Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Mamora, one of the finest National Assembly senators we have ever produced in this country. When he was not returning to National Assembly, many Nigerians who were not from Lagos were querying the decision of him not returning to National Assembly. He was his speaker. So Asiwaju is not the type that wants to work with one dummy that will be saying yes. He wants somebody that can even help him. Somebody that can read his vision, that can fit into it and ensure that he delivers on the promises he had made to Nigerians. But you see,
before we move ahead and to talk about the composition of the House, you do understand why a lot of people kicked when the president anointed.
The president did not anoint. The party anointed.
The president actually
endorsed.
Right? Okay.
Yes. Endorsement is different from anointing.
It was different. It was bad enough according to some. It's
not bad at all. I just told you about the story of US.
I'm talking about discordant
where we copy our own style
who felt
presidential election.
There was no separation of powers. I mean, if you have to pick, we saw a 9th assembly where the president of the Senate came out to say, I give thanks. I give credit to the president because without him I would not have emerged. And so you can also see why loans were being assented to so regularly. But I'm just saying that, do you see any reason why people stood against this micro zoning and eventual let
me say for you this. There are erroneous reasons why people think the party should not do what they do. And when I say erroneous, I mean what I am saying. In the first place, we should understand that none of these senators and House of Reps elects, or now senators and House of Rep members, none of them was an independent candidate.
All
they
of
were
them
sponsored by
a
particular party or the other.
Right.
So are you now telling me that when PDP was in the saddle, when they were holding sway, was there any time that PDP did not dictate who will be the leader, either at the Senate or the House of Rep? You remember the story, the debacle of Mulikat Akande and Tamboa.
Did that make it right?
No. I'm only telling you that at any time
in our democracy,
in any part of the world, don't make it look like we are so local in Nigeria. Let's just suppose whatever happens in this country with the best global practices. We are saying that there is nowhere in the world, including US, which we copy our own style of governance from. Even though I don't like to refer to them as best global standard. Look away when it comes to who lead the parliament, because parliament is a very important place. In this case, where the policies and programs of government will be cooked. Yes. And if you have people there that are not going to be in sync with the executive, when I say in sync, not that they approve anything they bring, but who are ready to work with the executive, ensure that do you know what it means to become president of Nigeria? I would only imagine. So it's not something you will receive out of 200 million Nigerians. Somebody is giving opportunity to lead us, and you think he will boggle that chance? No. And I can tell you an error in who lead the National Assembly can boggle that chance. People will not remember. An error let me say this. There's such a senator who would lead within the APC. There's no fear here that another political party could clinch it. So it's indeed clear that it's within the APC. It would be an error if somebody within the APC is not credible for that position. Is that what you're saying? No, that's not what I'm saying. You can agree with me. It's not everybody that is a senator-elect that has the charisma, the capacity and competence to become Senate President. You know. It's not everybody that is today sworn in as House of Rep member that has the capacity, competence, experience and charisma to become Speaker of the House. I agree totally. You agree. So if the party does not sit down and say, okay, and I can tell you, some of these people we think are not competent, see themselves as competent enough to be anything. Because especially when the law says your leaders will come among of you, and they accept those rules that they have made for themselves now. But the Constitution itself does not say somebody that is coming for the first time cannot be a speaker. But there are now rules that are made by the House or Senate that now set certain parameters for who will emerge as their leaders. But I'm saying that any leader, particularly a governor or president, may not want somebody that will say yes to everything he brings, but he wants somebody that can think out of the box, that will make his work simple. Right. You have some people who are House of Assembly member at the state level or senator at. There are some senators that for 4 years they were sleeping. Some of them did not raise a single motion. I agree with you. And when it comes to this issue of position, some of them will still feel like I've been here for 3 terms. Why can't I be Senate President? As a ranking member. Such a person that is given the chance, or the person has the money to spend, like Yari did. Because one of those things we have heard is that they've shared a lot of money. Yes. And I didn't even have to come to the television to say it's an insult. Yes. That Yari would think because he has money, he can buy everybody. I saw that with, it was quite ridiculous that the House, the assembly members who should set the pace in stopping vote buying and financial inducement. But the buying is now taking place in their corridor. Exactly. It was ridiculous. And you mentioned Yari. Actually, we also heard speculations actually that it was from all ends. It was in fact a dollar ring. When I said that I mentioned a particular person who everybody knows, right, that said it on television. So TV.
But behind the scenes, we heard that it was a dollar rain from both parts of the divide. Let's go to the fact that we have 8 political parties within the House. It is interesting. What kind of House do you see? Are those people who are really coming with ideologies? Remember, we had this conversation before the elections as to how some of these people even emerged in the first place. Were they really interrogated? Are there bills that are close to their hearts that they want to bring? Or we will see them pressured by majority parties or parties with majority members?
Well, let me say this. I want to talk. I've been talking like a true Nigerian, but I want to be more truer.
Whatever that means.
If there is anything like that, I want to be more a Nigerian saying this. I want to say some people who today were sworn in either as House of Rep members or senators, whatever decision they have taken today, whether at Abbas side or at okay, I think there's not much of that in the House, in the Senate, whether at Yari's side or at Akpabio's side, many of those decisions were not taken in the interest of you and me. They were taken first to protect their own personal interest. And I can tell you what we saw today. What we saw today. You know, I told you, you said what I said. Mm-hmm. I said I want to talk like a true Nigerian. Right. You know, the issue is that every politician, one thing is paramount to them: interest. No permanent friend or enemy. But what is paramount to them is, how is my interest going to be protected? So when that is done, then you can now begin to hear, oh, we do this for the sake of Nigeria, for the sake of the unity of this nation. That's understandable. But I'm also saying that if you look at House of Rep, for example, we have 8 different political parties there. But when you watch the proceedings today, you will see that they were united in voting Tajuddin Abbas. Were they united because they love this country? Maybe. Were they united because they've brought the cake to the table and they've shared it in such a way that everybody knows that, oh, everybody can get something, and that pleased them? I don't also know. But one thing I know is that what played out today in the House may likely be seen in better part of this assembly.
That unity? Yes,
may likely, because the way something starts, one of those things why I appreciate what happened today.
I need to quickly cut you there, because when you say this is different. With this, according to what you and I have already alluded to here, there were several lobbying. I don't know how
I want to say that.
But subsequently, when it comes to bills that will affect Nigerians, we see them often sleeping. My question would be, would they be united in getting Nigeria to where it's supposed to be?
Let me say this. I've spoken like Nigerian before. Let me talk as a politician now.
Right.
So let me tell you this. Ashwaju is here for business. And you have said so many things in the past that you have confirmed yourself. Ashwaju is here for business. And the business, many of those businesses will be done in the assembly. There is not going to be any bill that Nigerians will shout and say, oh, kill that bill. It will not come from this government. Many of the bills that will come to the National Assembly are bills that will look for the betterment of Nigerian states and Nigerian people. So at any time when I said we will see more of what happened today, it's because what they, you know, when you talk about bills in the assembly, it's not just coming from the executive alone. Many of them will come among them.
Exactly.
So the moment the leadership is provided at the level of the president, everybody will fall in line. When you see the president is doing well, everybody is shouting, oh, this guy is doing well. No assembly member will want to do anyhow at that level. When you have the head that knows what he does, that is doing the right thing, every other person, whether at the level of judiciary or at the parliament, they will fall in line. But when you see a president that does not even know his right from the left, that's why we have, I'm sorry, that's why certain things have happened at different times in this country. But when you have a president that
I'm still not sure why you apologized. I would really love it. It's like you had to caution yourself back there.
Oh, yes, because the fact remains that Nigeria is very, very important to me. I don't have dual citizenship. I have only one passport, and that is that of Nigeria. So anything that will take Nigeria forward, that will make us to have progress, I think I want to support it. And I've seen the last 2 weeks. Me, I've seen this before now. But I thank God that Asiwaju has not disappointed me in the first 2 weeks of his reign as president. And I can say that a lot of better things, good things, are on the way for Nigerians. And I can tell you, in the next 6 months, I said it in that other platform,
right, that
within the first 6 months of Asiwaju, many of his naysayers will begin. They've started already on Twitter now, many, even obedience, are now saying, okay, I think we didn't know certain things. Now we see better.
Why do you think they didn't know? Because you remember we kept saying...
They didn't know because there were a lot of campaign of calumny against this man, against this person. And the sheikh, like the sheikh, oh, he's sick. Oh, do you know how many times they have rumored that he had died? Including the last time he traveled. Oh, the second to the last one, that he had died. But today, we know who is better. He's a thinker, like he normally says. He's a thinker, he's somebody that can think out of the box. He's a visionary. I've said it in a television studio before, that what Asiwaju has done in the last 20 years is to sell his vision to certain other people, including the former president. He believed that he has a vision for this country.
Right.
And he think, oh, with the credential Buhari had, I think if I support him, we can get what I want for Nigeria through him. By the end of the 8 years, we are all in position to judge what happened in the last 8 years. So now the owner of the vision is in the saddle now. He's the owner of the vision, and now he knows what to do. And within the first 2 weeks, we understand that this person knows what he does. It's not like every other leader. He's not here to impress anybody. He's here for business. And I can tell you in the next 6 months, we will all be here to judge his performance. Okay. Before I let you go, I would like you to just quickly tell us how you think his cabinet would look like, because Nigerians are waiting with held back breath as to how this cabinet will look like. Are we going to see same old names? Because you have often projected things that, like you have said, come to pass. Are we seeing same old names? Are we going to see intelligent people? Aswaju is a president. I mean, is a politician. And whether anybody likes it or not, I don't like to be deceived. There will be certain appointments that will be patronizing in one way or the other because people had worked for him. But I know there are critical positions that he will not just put anybody. And when we say patronizing too, some of those people that had worked for him also are technocrats. So people like Wale Edun, who had been with him over the years, people have projected him to be the Minister of Finance. He just said this morning on the page of This Day newspaper that unification of our foreign exchange will take place immediately. So if it's announced tomorrow as Minister of Finance, nobody will fault it. That's not a round peg in a round hole. So we have so many people that had worked with him in the last 4 years or 3 years or 2 years who have all it takes to be a minister in his cabinet. But I know that there are people who also feature in that cabinet who are not politicians, who will be brought from different... I have opportunity to know this, that there are technocrats that are not politicians that will serve in this government. And again, there are people that will also serve in this government that are not necessarily members of APC. So it's going to be because I know it's going to be a government of national competence, not unity, not just unity. It's going to unite us, but at the same time, there are going to be people who have all it takes. I want to share in your optimism, Bosun Adeyeye. It's not a cautious one. Okay, it's intentional. Yes. Right. I'm excited that you are this excited, and I really want to share in your optimism. I'm one of the people who would always say that Nigeria must work. Like you said earlier, I do not have a dual citizen. I am all Nigeria, for Nigeria, and by all means, all Nigeria really.
So thank you so much for being part of Joy Asonye Live and sharing your thoughts on the 10th Assembly leadership elections.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you for having me.
Yes, one of these days you have to return when the cabinet is set. I need to know if we'll analyze them again.
No problem.
Thank you. And this is where we draw the curtains on Joy Asonye Live. Thank you for being part of the program. We'll be back tomorrow with so much more. Have a wonderful evening.